Hello, and welcome to Veronica's Voice, the podcast for cycle breakers and legacy makers, where we keep it real, raw, and authentic. Today, I am speaking with Allison Michelle Conlon, who is an audacious single boy mom and earth mother, licensed occupational therapist, and artist who supports other parents who are struggling to parent their angsty and creative teenagers. Never experienced that. She shows parents how to release shame and other blocks in order to live their highest truth and presence with their teens and create trust, freedom, and deep connection in those relationships. She is passionate about helping parents of teenagers create strong relationships that last a lifetime. Welcome, Allison.
Yay, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm so excited to talk about this topic because, as you know, a lot of people listening are survivors or thrivers of narcissistic trauma. And something that I am very passionate about is supporting parents that are parenting with a toxic ex. And I feel like in our
Mhm.
community, narcissistic trauma recovery community, our children are suffering. And we can dive a little bit more into that as we talk, like how they're suffering and what they need support with. But speaking to, I just love your mission about helping parents create strong relationships. Because I know from myself personally, um, that was maybe one of the biggest challenges or lessons in my narcissistic trauma recovery journey, was supporting my kids and creating those strong relationships with my kids. So I know people listening can really relate to this topic. And Allison, I was curious if you are willing to share a little bit about your story that brought you to being so passionate about this topic.
Yeah. I support parents of teen girls and non-binary teens because I was that teen girl that was super disconnected, didn't know her value. Eating disorder. I had a girlfriend that I didn't think that I was supposed to have because I wasn't supposed to be gay, and I tried not to be gay and just ended up making a huge mess of everything and stealing her boyfriend because that would make me look straight. And he was bad news. And so I got involved in like just a series of bad relationships, and ended up having to move back in with my parents with a baby. And that was its own difficult journey in itself. But I just realized that I was going to have to do some like growing, some reparenting of myself to be able to be a decent person for my kid, to be do things differently so that my child didn't walk down the same really painful path that I did and be separated from their parents for 20 years. Like I don't I don't see I don't see how that's setting our kids up for success. So I really want to be able to help other parents, because see, the thing is, like, my parents this whole time, they did love me, but because of the patterns of familial things, or like a lack of training or whatever the problem was, like they weren't able to communicate that connection with me. And so I was disconnected, I was lost, like trying to figure this stuff out by myself. And I wanted to really help. Like, I'm so passionate about teens today. Like, everything I hear about them and experience that with them. Like, I was at Panera the other day, well, it was probably a couple of months now, but like I was there with my little son, and there were these teen young women like in there, like interacting with him, and they were just so precious and sweet. And I'm so inspired by this generation and like what they think about and what they care about and what they believe and they're passionate about. And I just really want to set them up to be able to change the world the way that they're excited to do.
I love what you just shared, and I want to highlight that, which is that you're so excited about this generation. Because I'm curious if I'm gonna get through this conversation without tearing up because I get really choked up around
Right.
this topic. But I feel the same way. Like I think this generation of young people are so amazing, and I'm so excited for what they're gonna bring. And I feel like that's a message that we don't hear enough. I think so many people, at least what I'm hearing in our world, is like, oh, these young people, they're whatever, like they're fill in the blank, they're entitled, they don't work hard, they're et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I personally just don't see that. I think they're amazing. They're going to change the world in ways that we can't even imagine right now. But, and also they need support. Like they're really struggling, I think, unlike any other generation
Yeah,
potentially.
totally.
Yeah. And I'm curious, Allison, like, what are you seeing as being the biggest struggles with teens? And you primarily support teen girls, is that right? Parent moms of teen girls.
Yes, yes. That's
Yeah.
where I'm mostly in this space. I mean, I will definitely help a parent of a boy. Just sometimes the way that the things that they're struggling with may look different
They
between
may
boys
look,
and
yeah, they
girls.
may look different. And I think also the way they respond looks different. But for anyone who
Mhm.
doesn't know, if you're listening, I'm the mom of 3 young adult boys. And so I've kind of fuddled my way through learning how to support them. And so yeah, I'm happy to speak to the boy perspective as we talk. But I would love to hear from you, Allison, like what are the things that young people, teenagers in particular today, are really struggling with the most that you've encountered?
Yeah. Well, I think the big obvious one that kind of jumps out right away is they all went through the pandemic, which just wrecked everything that they were trying to do or like their whole support system. And so like a lot of them have come out of it with anxiety and fear and just all of the emotions that all of us felt as we experienced that. And then like a lot of them like they lost their school, they lost their community, and so they're struggling a little bit with trust and with hope and with confidence. And I think that
Hugely, hugely. Yeah.
social media is, I mean, I just feel like it's so cliche to blame it. And at the same time, like this, all of this tech, I think in so many ways limits our actual human connection with people. And so people are starved for that as well. I think sometimes that it limits the acquisition of certain skills because we are operating so much in like texting. And so then maybe we don't have the courage to pick up the phone and make a doctor's appointment or something like that. But motivation or confidence, depending on whether you're a boy or a girl. I think that usually tends to present slightly differently on that one. Trust, trusting their parents, feeling loved by their parents. I think a lot of parents, they do love their kids, but they have a difficult time explaining that in a way that their kid is actually like feeling and receiving that. So sometimes there's a little barrier there. Or a lot of the families that I serve have children that are neurodiverse. So they're dealing with anxiety or some stripe of autism or ADHD or something that is making their relationship with their kid a little bit more complex, a little more specialized. Those are the people that usually end up coming for my support. And so those kids are gonna maybe we're needing to support them with homework or routines, or maybe they are reacting in certain ways that we don't necessarily understand or we're not seeing as like part of their development. And then those behaviors are getting blamed like, oh, that means this means I'm a bad mom, this means my kid, and so like we put these stories around some of these things that are like really just development. And so those are the main kind of categories that I end up finding that people struggle with. Of course, every family is unique.
Yeah, yeah. Those are, I love that you pointed those out. And I want to highlight some of them. You said confidence, motivation, trust, um, and then neurodiversity and things like that. And I know that for people that are listening, if you are in the narcissistic trauma recovery community, which a lot of people in my space are, our
Sure.
kids deal with those things and then like exponentially. And one
Mhm.
thing that I've discovered is why I'm passionate about supporting parents and their kids, and why I'm so happy to have you here today, is because our kids, when there's a maladaptive parent, a toxic parent, our kids suffer in really, really big
So
ways.
much.
And the lack of confidence and the lack of motivation, when you have a parent, a toxic parent, I'll just say narcissistic parent, and I'm using that term kind of broadly, but
Okay.
they really crush a child's confidence because nothing is about the child. Everything is about the parent. They
Yeah.
crush the child's trust because they don't follow through on their word. And
Mhm.
and of course motivation is all tied up in that. And
Mhm.
I see kids in this space suffering from depression and self-harm and anxiety and
Mhm.
being on the autism spectrum. And there is a correlation between emotional abuse in childhood and personality disorders and mood disorders, as well as drug use. I mean, self-harm, suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, all those things are just elevated when you have a narcissistic or toxic parent. So I love that you are talking about those things, the fear and the trust and the confidence and the motivation and those kinds of things. What are some things that you have found that, like, if you were to, if someone's listening and you're like, I just want you to walk away with this today, what would that be? What do you want these parents to know who have kids that are suffering?
Yeah. Okay. Just one. Come
I
on,
mean, you
Veronica.
can give more than one, of course, of course.
Okay.
But I know
So,
there's a couple that are like really key and maybe simple concepts for our parents that are listening.
okay. So first of all, like, and there's the easy answer, which is connection. But before we go into that, I just want to like acknowledge all of the feelings that go along with this for parents. And that, like, one of the hardest things as a parent is like when your kid is struggling, it's so hard to listen to that and validate that because it feels so intense for us. It's so easy for us to just be like, you don't feel that, you're okay, right? Because it's so intense. And so if you're facing this with your child, I just acknowledge the courage that it takes for you to show up every day in relationship with them, because I know that you are not coming from an easy place. And I also acknowledge you for being the safe parent that's listening to this, that's concerned about your relationship, that wants to be accountable for their own behaviors.
Thank you for
So,
acknowledging that. Yeah, and what you just said, thank you for being a safe parent. I also want to just share that because you are the safe parent, your child is going to act up more around you. Something I've
mhm,
observed over and over again with toxic parents is that the child goes to the toxic parent's house and is like fine, behaves perfectly, goes to school, never gets sick, whatever it is, whatever perfectly looks like. And then they come to your place and they have no motivation. They don't want to go to school. They're dysregulated. They have big emotions. It's because you're the safe parent.
yeah, and they need that space to recharge, especially if they're neurodiverse, right? They're going to school or they're going to the other parent's house and they're holding it together. They're putting on that mask and that fake face, and they need a space to just be like, I'm myself, I'm my real self, and yeah, I'm in a bad mood, I'm hungry right now, okay, don't mess with me. And so yes, like if your kid says like I don't want to talk right now, like that's actually a really good sign of health in your relationship with them, because they know that you'll honor them and you'll give them space to not talk right now.
That's
So
so awesome. I
kudos.
love that. I love that you said that. If a kid is able to say, I don't want to talk right now, that's actually something, Allison, that one of my boys and I, who he identifies as neurodiverse, like he hasn't been diagnosed, but it took us a long time to come to that understanding of what you just shared, where I would want him to talk because I'm female and I connect through talking and sharing. And I would want,
Mhm.
he'd come home from wherever, dad's or school, and I want him to talk, and he would just be in a bad mood and whatever, however he would respond. And it took me a while to finally say, hey, if you're in a bad mood and don't want to talk to me, just tell me and I'm okay with that. And so now he's a young adult. Now we're still sharing space, but so now we have that understanding. And he's like, I don't want to talk right now. Cool. And the beautiful thing is later he comes back and he will talk because he knows he has
Mhm.
permission to not when he doesn't want to. And it goes the other way too. Because there are times
Mhm.
he'll come and start talking and like wanting answers to things. And I'm like, I can't talk about that right now. And he gets it and he walks away, and then he'll come back and he'll be like, can you talk about that now? Like later or on another day.
Yay.
And I'll be like, yes. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that because it's a great tool if it's not one that you're aware of yet for our parents that are listening. And if your child is already saying this to you, like that's freaking awesome. It's not that they're shutting you
Yeah,
out, they're communicating
exactly.
with you. So
Yeah.
cool. All right,
Yeah.
back to you. So you were
Yeah.
sharing one or two or three things that you would really want our parents listening to walk away with from today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So okay, so this is the thing that I struggle with my messaging all the time, because I just want to jump in and talk about connection, and people don't realize that they have a connection problem. They're like, my kid won't empty the dishwasher. My kid is coming home after curfew. My kid explodes on me when we're doing a driving lesson. And it's all or my kid is smoking pot or whatever. And so then they're like, well, whatever symptom, whatever you're struggling, if you're having a major problem, whatever it is, it probably underneath of it, it all comes down to our connection, our influence, our ability to have a relationship with them. So they're open, so that they care what we think. Like
100%, 100%.
if my kiddo is having a tantrum, because I have a young child, he's 5. And so I'm thinking over the last like 3 or 4 years, right? If he's having a tantrum, he's dysregulated, nothing is going in, right? He's crying. It's all about, meltdown on the floor, right? There's no learning. There's nothing happening in his brain that he can acquire new information. I have to connect with him. So I got to calm him down. I got to make him feel safe. I got to create an opportunity for him to share. And it may not be right then, right? It may be later before bed. For teenagers, it's often bedtime that they're ready to open up and share. So, maybe there's some self-care that goes on somewhere around, 8:45. So you're ready when they come to you at 10. But so it's all about connection.
I love that. I love that. I want to highlight that just for a quick second. Because you very quickly said maybe at 8:45 do some self-care. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know that would have occurred to me, but like, oh, if you know that your child is going to be chatty at a certain time, like consistently they're chatty at bedtime at 10 p.m., do some self-care ahead of time so you're ready. I love that, especially for people that are, well, we're all struggling with big things, but like, again, people that I work with who may be listening, like they're dealing with court and divorce and exes and just a lot of stuff. So I love that you said that. Do some self-care first and then be ready to connect with your teenager. So you were just talking about like your 5-year-old might tantrum. And so first, you have to help him calm down and then be safe. And then there's opportunity to share. Do you have any suggestions for like how to do that with a teenager?
Okay. Yeah. So with a teenager, so one of the things that teenagers are afraid of is that parents are going to overreact. So a big thing is whenever your teen shares something with you that's big or that you feel a certain way about it, you just want to say, okay. Nothing else. Okay. Just keep your mouth shut for at least 45 seconds. Right. Because then you have time to think about how you actually want to respond to them and accept them just the way that they are without needing to change anything. Right. Okay. Like, oh, something crazy happened with my friend. Someone brought a gun to school. Like these are very real, scary things that people are dealing with. And as a parent, it's like, well, I can't handle all of this, but we know that our kids can't. They need us to be the strong one. So to just kind of keep that close to the chest, that this is really intense for me to deal with, acknowledge your feelings by all means, right? But if you can do that internally so that you can be that rock solid person that they know that they can come to, because you do have a lot of experience on your kid. You have a lot you can share with them. So we want to make sure that we catch those opportunities when they come up and our kids are able to connect with us when those opportunities come. Teens that are dysregulated. So another thing that we deal with a lot is, well, just to first of all acknowledge that teens do get dysregulated. We all get dysregulated. And so, people want to like be hard on teens. They're having temper tantrums or whatever. I've seen plenty of adults have them, right? And
the moody teenager, the trope of the moody teenager. Oh, they're just being a moody teenager. Like, I think I honestly really dislike when people say that because I feel like it's so invalidating.
Yes.
Like, yes, they're hormonal. Guess what? I'm going through menopause and I'm hormonal. Somebody came up to me and was like, well, that hormonal middle-aged woman. I mean, people say that too, but right? Like it's just so invalidating. So yeah, they're hormonal. And also they have big feelings. They're
Mhm.
experiencing things for the first time in their life, like love and whatever. That's big stuff, and they don't know how to process it, and they have big emotions. And just being like,
Oh,
ugh, you're being a moody teenager. Or we make them wrong. Go
mm-hmm.
away. Like go to your room until you're ready to be nice.
Oh, sure, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like what is or go to your room until you're ready to be respectful. What does that tell our teenagers? Their emotions are wrong.
Right.
They have to hide their emotions. But I love that you're
Mhm.
talking about dysregulated teenagers, and I think you were about to share like something around how to support them through that.
No, you're great. I mean, I love that you brought up validation, right? So acknowledging how that they feel is valid. So like we don't have to agree to validate, like so they have some incident with their teacher where they were probably 85% wrong and their teacher was maybe 15% wrong, right? Still validating the way that they felt about that situation before you give them any sort of like guidance, advice, right? On what that they should do about it. Oh, well, you should, let's try to avoid anything where it's you should, because that's like so naturally invalidating, right? And so I loved that you brought co-regulation back into it, because it really is like when our kids are struggling like that, like how do we teach them to calm their bodies back down, right? Hey, wow, I know, like, so I really like to hold especially teenagers in high esteem, right? Like, I know that you're a good person. I know that you think friendships are important, or especially knowing the things for your kid that are important. So, I have a client whose kid really values loyalty, right? And so when we're having a conversation, like we bring it back to their loyalty and who we know that they are. And so I know that you just screaming at me just now was not who you really are. So there must be something else going on. Do you want to take a break and talk about this later? Would you like to take some deep breaths? Maybe you could go do some legs up the wall and come back and talk to me when we're both calm. And if you kind of own some of the dysregulation, it makes it easier for your kid to take responsibility for their part. So a lot
Oh,
of
I
times I
love
like to
that.
use
Owning your own
we.
dysregulation. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah. So, and those are some of the ways. I mean, I could go on.
Yeah,
Like,
we could
please,
totally
let's
talk
just
about
keep
this for a
talking
while, but
about
it's
regulation,
it's so important.
food.
Regulation is so important, and acknowledging their feelings and giving them space to go have your emotions. And yes, maybe it's not okay for you to have them on me, right? Like in my face, screaming,
Right.
whatever. But it's still
Yes.
okay for you to have them. And something I share with people with boys in particular, or I think it's valid for boys and girls, but um, especially again if they have a toxic parent, there can be a lot of suppressed anger, and to not make anger wrong, right? But to
Right.
sometimes I let giving options for how they can release their anger. Like sometimes it's deep
Mhm.
breaths, but sometimes it's like, wow, you seem really angry. Like, do you want to go punch your pillow, or do you want to go, if you have, a punching bag in the garage, or whatever, but like make it
Lifting weights, going
okay.
for a walk.
Going for a walk, a run, things like that, making it okay to release the anger. So we were talking about, so just to highlight some of the things that you said so far. So connecting with your kids. So that includes helping them regulate. So acknowledging the dysregulation was something that you just shared. So for everyone listening, I'm going to try to like highlight some of the things you can walk away with if you're wanting to improve your relationship with your teenager and support them. So support, you said helping them calm down. And then I'm still thinking of that tantrum with your 5-year-old, helping them calm down, helping them feel safe, and then giving them opportunity to share. And those are the same things that you can do with your teenagers. Am I understanding that correctly?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. So one more thing that I mean, so I've worked professionally with kids, and so I just love all this stuff. So you get me starting to talk about regulation and how to
Yeah,
be
because
able
as an
to live your
occupation,
life.
Allison, you were and are a pediatric occupational therapist. Is that right?
Yes. So the
So
kids that like
yeah,
act in a way that disrupts the classroom rhythm. So we won't say the naughty kids, right? I don't think they're naughty, they're
they're not
dysregulated,
naughty.
right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, those are the kids that I work with. And one of the things I was thinking about this little boy who he was nonverbal, but of course, it's so strange to me because like I age isn't really relevant. So many of the things, so many of the approaches are the same. But he was nonverbal and he was really really upset. And I said, it sounds like you're angry. And it was just like he melted. Oh, somebody got it. Yes, I'm angry. Thank you for noticing. And that was all. Right. And so sometimes naming the emotion is really powerful, or helping your kid walk through that process.
It's huge. It's huge. I love that.
Like, why does this feel so hard right now? Well, it's because I feel rejection. I don't think those kids like me. Right. And so if you can just name that, then you can soothe it, and you can be like, okay, but I don't reject me. Right. And
Yes.
it
It's
helps us work
huge.
through those
And
emotions.
by the way, like for parents struggling with things like with their kids struggling with things like self-harm and depression and anxiety, this is it's
Mm-hmm.
the same. Like if you can name for them, they may not be able to, especially with boys, I feel like it's hard for them sometimes to share their feelings. But if you can be like, gosh, I know when I experienced depression, it was because I was feeling really rejected, or I was feeling really sad. Like what you just said, like naming the emotion. And the reason I brought up self-harm and depression, things like that, is because sometimes I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, not sometimes, but as a culture, I feel like we shy away from it. Like, oh my gosh, like they're self-harming. Either I did something wrong, or it's like it's something so bad and so dark. I'm afraid to
Mm-hmm.
speak to it. Because if I speak to it,
Almost taboo.
maybe I'm validating it, and then maybe they're going to self-harm more. Maybe they're actually going to attempt to take their life. Maybe they're, and the truth is, if we speak to what they're feeling, it minimizes the self-harm.
Mm. Yeah. So we're not minimizing the self-harm as in making the fact that they're doing it smaller. It actually, you're saying it reduces the
Correct.
amount of
It
self-harming that they're
it
doing.
reduces, yeah, it, or I should say it has the potential to reduce that in the teenager. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. I
Thank you
mean,
for
I totally
clarifying my
believe that.
words.
Because I think that, like, well, our connection with them is super important. So I want to just acknowledge moms who are experiencing self-harm with their teenagers, or any sort of like self-destructive behavior. So that could be like choosing bad friends, that could be smoking, any of it, right? I just want to acknowledge how scary it is as a parent, and that like we get to work with our own emotions on that so that we can, when we are having those conversations with our kids, which are going to be super challenging, that we've at least done some self-care around it before we get there, because it's tough. I know it is. I've worked with moms who are experiencing that, and it's just a lot for them to feel.
A lot.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to say, for if you have a kiddo that's doing this, because chances are they don't want to be, and you really want to build this connection with them so that they feel safe to talk to you about it, right? If your kid has an eating disorder, like, wouldn't you feel better if they can tell you whether they ate today or not, and know that you're not going to freak out on them whether they did or didn't, right? Or if they took a laxative or something, like, really scary, right? That they can still have that open dialogue with us no matter what, that they're always valid to us. We're always seeing them as whole, which is where this unconditional love piece comes in, that like, no matter what you do, even if I completely disagree with your behavior, you are always good to me. You are always whole to me. I don't need to change you. If you're neurodiverse and you get dysregulated, like, and so it is, right? And you're still wonderful. And I'm still so glad I have you. Um, so if we have the self-harming kid, and we need to, if we have the kiddo that is engaging in this behavior, I don't want to label them, right? If we have a kiddo that's engaging in this behavior, they probably don't want to be. Like, nobody wants to have an eating disorder. Nobody wants to be like cutting themselves. Like, we are going to figure this out together. I've got your back, right? Like, you can trust me, and I'm going to lead you out of this dark place. We're not going to be here forever. Because that's another thing. Kids struggle right now with so much hopelessness. They look at this world that boomers and millennials and have created for them, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, like, either what is going to happen? There's no hope for me. How could I ever make a living with inflation where it is? Or like, with all of these, how can I ever live in a world where people actually like my TikTok videos because I can't get the traction, right? Like there's just so much fear, and so they need the hope. And so you as their guide are the thing that they can hold on to. Like, okay, like I've got this safe foundation. I can do this. It's so much less scary then.
That was so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And being that connecting with your kid and recognize, because this is what I heard you say, and tell me if this is right, Allison. So that connection, which provides safety for them to come and talk with you or share or know that they have that stable, secure foundation, is actually going to protect them from these very difficult things that they might be facing in terms of hopelessness or self-harm, things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our best protective factor for our kids. Like we cannot control the world. We cannot control a toxic ex. We cannot send our kid out to school in a dress and expect no one to comment on the fact that they're a little boy in a dress. Like, how dare you do this, right? You're not following the norm. The only thing that we can do as parents is unconditionally accept them for who they are and encourage them to shine for who they are so that they can know that at least with you, and you're that primary relationship, right? They're going to learn how to love from us as their parents. We're teaching them who they are and how they should be treated. And so we're creating that for them as they grow.
I love that. I love that. And I know we all want that. We want our kids to grow up and be in beautiful, loving, supportive, healthy relationships. And we get to model that for them by loving them unconditionally and being that connection. So if you're listening and you feel like, okay, I get all this unconditional love, connection, cool, but sometimes it can feel a little murky in like the implementation. And so, Allison, you have a formula that may help our parents remember these key components. So can you share that with us? And if you're listening, I encourage you to grab your pen and your notebook and write this down. So, and maybe put it on a post-it and point it, place it somewhere where you can see it. If you're listening to maybe pause this recording and go grab your pen before Allison shares this formula so that you have it handy.
Thank you, Veronika. Okay, so I like to encourage parents to use a weight formula, especially if your kid is bringing you something that feels really intense for you. And you're kind of like, whoa, like I said earlier, okay, is weight. So the first thing you want to do always with our kids is withhold judgment. Nobody wants to feel like if they bring something to you, like if you brought something to a friend, you would not want to receive judgment from them. If you did, you'd probably stop
So
bringing
just to be clear, Allison, you're saying wait as in like hold on and wait, like WAIT.
Yes.
Yeah. So for everyone
WAIT is
listening, you can
wait.
write
It's an
down an
acronym.
acronym. Everybody, you can write down on your journal WAIT, and then Allison's going to tell you what each of those letters stand for. And then that I love it because wait is just yeah, so perfect. Just wait. Just wait. Okay, go ahead. So
Yeah. So
W is
first thing,
withhold judgment.
withhold judgment. Oh my gosh. If we can just master this as parents of teenagers, like, oh, so far ahead. Yes. And so you even if you want to judge them later, hold on to it right now. Okay. Just withhold that judgment so you can think clearly. Okay. So withhold judgment, first step. And then allow yourself some time to breathe so you can process your own feelings, your own emotions, nurture yourself. And then I is inquire, ask a great question. Give yourself that time, right? Use that breathe to think of this question. Okay. So we really want to ask a thoughtful question that's going to empower our kids, right? So what do you want to do about this? Or a great one that I love is how can I help you right now? Or what would you like me to do to support you? Because you're keeping them in the driver's seat. You're giving them that control that they need as teens. And asking them a question instead of giving them unsolicited advice. So you're letting them share more, share more. I always want you to share more as a teenager. Please just keep talking. Tell me more. Dime, tell me more. Okay. So, and then T is trust. And this is the hardest one, especially for you moms that are dealing with, you just don't know what this other part of their lives is doing, right? And your kid is in this awkward position of like trying to report that sometimes. Oh, this happened, and then like what's going to happen between these adults? And that's super awkward for them, right? And so we just get to trust that we are a good parent, that at the end of the day, we really do want to see our kids successful. We love them. They really do want to be in a relationship with us. They want us to be that trusting, safe adult so that they can talk to us. They really want a relationship with us, even if they're closing the door, even if their face is in their phone, they really do want that connection with you. So trusting in that, trusting our kids that they really want to have a good life. They want to make good decisions. They want to make you proud.
That's awesome. I love that so much. So we have withhold judgment. Um, what was A?
Allow yourself
Allow,
some
I'm
time.
sorry. Allow yourself to breathe, right?
Mhm.
Allow yourself to breathe. So withhold judgment, allow yourself to breathe, inquire, ask questions, and then trust. Trust in the relationship, trust in your child. Um, Lots of trust. Yeah, that's the hardest one. So, well, I don't know if it's the hardest one, but it can be for people. I realize I'm
It can.
projecting. Trust was a hard one for me to learn in general. So that's so awesome. So wait, so if you're listening, I hope you wrote that down and wrote down what that stood for. And then Allison, I know that like when we get these little tools and acronyms. Like it sounds great. This was what happens to me. And I'm like, that makes sense. And then, my teen walks to the door and is exploding. Then you're like, wait, I don't know. I don't quite know how to do it like in the moment. And so
Yeah.
you are offering an amazing offer for our listeners today to help them with implementation and how to apply weight to their specific situation.
Yeah. So if you go to my podcast site, which is my homepage, you can download the weight formula. It's got a couple of journal questions in there and a little bit of like more explanation, although I went pretty in depth today. Um, so you can get on my list and start getting emails from me if you do that. But I'm also more than happy to offer any of you that are listening right now that need more support with your teenagers a trust and freedom breakthrough call so that we can connect and really get some strategies for you so that you can work on your relationship in the way that you want to, like you can find a solution that you feel great about.
That is so awesome and so generous. So for if you're listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I need help with my teenager, in the link below, if you grab this on YouTube or if you got this in email, open up that email and there's a link to the weight formula that you can download from Allison. And then also there's a link if you want to book a free call with Allison, and she will support you with your biggest challenge right now with your teenager and implementing creating a strategy that works for you and your teenager because everybody is unique. Thank you so much, Allison, for being here today. Do you have any final thoughts or parting words that you would like to share with our listeners?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you to everybody who listened with us all the way to the end. Oh my goodness. It was so much fun to be with you all today. I do have a caveat on the weight formula that even though it's a powerful tool for leading great conversations with teenagers, it may not be the tool to use if we're really dysregulated. We might need some actual strategies on calming our body down and really being like tapping into some higher level skills on moving our nervous system into a more calm and regulated state. Not to say that it can't work, but you might need to actually walk away and take a break. You might need to do more than like a 30-second breather break, right? If you're truly out of sorts, right? And which happens, it totally happens, especially if you're in a traumatic relationship or you're recovering from one. So just so much empathy for that. Anyway, last thoughts. So this has been so much fun, Veronika. Thank you so much for having me on. I just really appreciate the work that you're doing with all of these beautiful beings that are growing into an even more powerful version of themselves that would never end up finding themselves in a relationship like that because they make different choices now. So I'm just like holding that vision for the person that all of these people are becoming, and like the lessons and the wisdom that come from these experiences. And I just look forward to the hope and the possibility for your lives and what that creates for the world.
Thank you so much, Allison. Appreciate you being here. I love that final thought of what you just shared. You know, you've had difficult experiences, you listening, and you're growing into a person who is so much more powerful from all those experiences. And do check out the links to Allison's free gift and also a call with her if you need help with your teenager. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Veronika.
Thank you for joining me on Veronika's Voice. If you took something away from today's episode, remember to like, share, and subscribe so others can benefit as well. See you next time.